Welcome back to another edition of the podcast. And tonight is our Gameweek SIX National League preview and predictions. As always, I'm joined by Paul Franklin, my co-host. Paul, firstly, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Of course, looking forward to the National League action on Saturday. It's been a busy one in the past week or so. 2 managers sacked in the space of 24 hours. One of those clubs, of course, has appointed Wealdstone's old manager and ex-Notts County manager, Stuart Maynard. Now, we're going to get into all of that, talk plenty of National League tonight. But we've got a very special guest, haven't we, Paul? Without giving anything away, it'll be a good one, won't it?
Yeah. Got the message this evening that saying that he was keen to sort of join us and have a chat about the National League. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. Hopefully those that are listening and watching will enjoy the input.
Brilliant. So everyone, please remember to like and subscribe. Check out our sponsors' cards accepted. There's a link in the description that'll get 50% off your card machine if you do that. And without any further ado, let's bring in tonight's guest. So we're joined by Robbie Savage tonight. Robbie, firstly, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I've known Paul, we followed each other on social media for a number of years. I don't know when it dates back to, Paul. Do you? And why? I can't remember.
Well, when did you play for Derby against QPR when you marked Adel Tarapt out of the game?
Oh wow, yeah, I remember that. Was it 2009, 10?
Yeah, it would have been around that time, and we happened to have an interaction on the Hanger Lane roundabout in London. You were being driven.
Wow.
Do you remember? And
wow.
I asked you whether Adel Tarapt was still in your back pocket, and then you were cheekily sort of sent a tweet around the fact myself and my colleague, being in the occupations we are, thinking we were going around trying to find Easter eggs on an Easter egg hunt. So yeah, so it's been a long time, and then I did briefly meet you at the when you did the Strictly Come Dancing live. I happened to have a friend who was that was soon after. So yeah, and we followed each other on social media ever since. It's I've always followed how you've been doing, and obviously with Mac and now with Forest Green. So it's nice to have you on board.
Thanks. Yeah, obviously I seen the pod last week because I try and follow, all the pods. I done the Northern Premier League one last year. So I think it's important that, you can give back to, YouTube channels and insight because it helps. So again, listen, a pleasure. I'm on my own in my apartment, waiting to train, getting to training tomorrow. I'm away from my family. You have to make sacrifices. So again, I love talking football. So what a better place to do it.
I was a bit stunned, to be honest, Robbie, when Paul messaged me last week after the podcast to say that you were tuning in live. We've never had anything like that before. But anyway, no, it's a perfect time to actually bring yourself on. Of course, Forest Green Rovers at the moment sit top of the tree. The highest XG across all 5 divisions in English football. First, just what's it been like at Forest Green Rovers since you've joined the club?
It's been amazing. What you need as a manager is an opportunity and a chance. I had an opportunity to leave Mac on a couple of occasions for hire, but I didn't think it was the right opportunity. When this came along, I know the owner Dale, who's backed me massively, Mark Boyne, the sporting director, and the CEO Asif. Us 4 work really well together, as you've seen from the recruitment. So again, when I heard there was an opportunity and I had the interview, their vision, the project, good people, which Mac, was exactly the same. I just thought, what, full-time football, an opportunity. At a fantastic football club with wonderful facilities, brand new training ground. Probably there's none better outside of, it's a League One standard, the owner wants to get the stadium done as well in a couple of years. So again, the whole project excites me. And the bottom line is, as an inexperienced manager, which I am, because I've only had a year, but, for over 30 years of experience as a professional in the game, I thought it was a perfect opportunity. But again, you need a chance, and the chance I have here is undoubtedly one of the best ones you have in the National League.
Robbie, when obviously you with Matt, you came through the feeder leagues up to the National League. Were you always aware of the National League, step 1 and step 2, and the players involved, the managers involved, the way teams play? Because I think one of the criticisms of new managers is knowing the league and knowing the players. But were you preparing yourself mentally for that, with an opportunity coming hopefully in that near future?
Well, our recruitment from Mac was League 1, League 2, National League North and South. So again, when we're looking at players, we were bringing players down. So Mac, we had the financial capability of bringing those types of players. Danny Elliott, 41 goals. Danny Whitehead. So Justin Johnson, so we had, our recruitment was from those leagues. So again, not so much the National League South, because obviously, to put players up in the daytime trading model would have cost us more money. So again, the National League North, the National League teams around the North, League 1, League 2 academies. As you know, my son Charlie was in the academy system, Manchester United. I've watched hundreds of games at those levels. So from the Premier League down to probably step 3, I don't think there was anybody's got greater knowledge than myself, and I'm self-deprecating, but I love it. I've just been watching the football on the TV. So again, I watch football every night. I've got, Y Scout, Stats Bomb. I've got everything, to make sure that I'm prepared in anything I've ever done, whether that's as a player, looking who my opponent was, if it was as director of football, as a pundit, doing my research. So again, the benefit of being at Forest Green is, I've got such a big team behind the scenes, opposition analysis, our analysis, everything, sports science, physios, anything, we need as a football club, it can be provided to make us the best we can be. And, I try and give that to my players. All I want my players to do on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a weekend is make sure that when they cross the white line, they give us everything. And so far, and they'll continue to do that.
Did you know much about the National League before actually joining Forest Green, or were you kind of in the lurch and thinking, I've got to take the opportunity?
Oh, listen, we played Tamworth in the FA Cup. We lost 4-2. I still believe on that day we were the better team, but, stats will say they won 4-2 and had an unbelievable run, losing to Spurs. Delighted for them that they got Spurs. We drew with Altrincham in the FA Trophy. We drew and lost on penalties when we were down to 10 after half an hour. And then the previous season, we got to the FA Trophy semi-final. So again, my knowledge wasn't as great as it is now, because since I got the job, every single day, when I knew I was getting the job, I was researching. I think I'd watched loads of games from last season, because I was preparing for life in the National League North with Mac. So again, if it happened very quickly, but the beauty of retaining a lot of my staff from last year at Forest Green was that they know the levels, and I'm learning all the time. Listen, I'm going to make mistakes. I've made mistakes already. We should have 15 points from 15, so that's disappointing. So I've made mistakes. My players will make mistakes, but I want that. I want them to make mistakes and be brave, and and we can all learn together. And I think that's what we've got so far. Is I'm sure we'll come on to the recruitment side, but we've got a group of players, 15 new players, all willing to learn, to get better. We'll make mistakes individually, collectively, and together. But listen, I'm getting to know more about the National League every single day.
And Sav, on the squad, it came very quickly getting the job. But were you aware of the Forest Green team, the squad, the players? Had you kept an eye on them? And were you able to quickly make an assessment on what you had and what you needed for this season? Because ultimately the squad almost stagnated towards the end of the season. We're treading water, waiting for the playoffs, and it just didn't push on in that knockout football. So you must have seen things that you knew you needed to change.
Well, my relationship with the owner comes from when Charlie was here at 18. under Duncan Ferguson, and I knew the club then behind the scenes, fantastic people. Claire, who does, so much for me, and she really helped Charlie, club secretary. She does numerous things, people behind the scenes, Deb's at the club. There's so many people I could speak about who I knew, and the way they looked after Charlie. So I always kept in contact with the owners, friends. So when the opportunity come along, obviously I always keep my eye on them, as I do all my old clubs or wherever Charlie's been. So, there was a common denominator there, that I knew the club anyway. So I'd always follow their results. And then they done ever so well last year. So, they finished third, lost out in the playoffs to Southend. But again, when you have an opportunity like this, I wanted to create my style of football, which we can all see. I think, Luke, you mentioned we've got the highest differential in XG. I think I think it's 1.95 and 0.63 or something goals expected against us, or even lower than that in all 5 leagues. So we're doing okay. We can do better. I'm still not happy with the final third. I'm happy with the final third entries, but I think we can be more clinical. So it was about a style of football and a brand of football, engaging with the fan base, which you can see on social media. That's me. I get high when we win in terms of my emotions, and when we lose, because we will lose games, I'll be down and low. But again, that's me. People say stay level, but I've got an infectious personality, which my players, thrive off, and the fans do. But when we lose, I will be low. Of course I will, because it's my life, it's my passion, and I'm a winner, and that's what I want to do, win. So the squad was in a good place, because it finished third. But I just wanted to create a brand of football which we had at Macclesfield. But obviously the benefits are, Macclesfield had fantastic players, and we won the league, but with 109 points, that record I don't think will ever be broken. But I just wanted to create the Macclesfield style here at Forest Green, because I know how entertaining, how front-footed, and how enjoyable it is, to be involved in it as a player and as a manager, but also for the fans.
You speak about that style there at Forest Green. Of course, Forest Green last season actually finished third in the National League, which is very impressive considering most sides who come down into this division, it often takes a lot of time for them to adjust to the National League. Because I think often when you see sides, probably not Forest Green because they've been in this division before, but we often see a lot of sides that seem to be quite naive coming into this division because they're not aware of what other teams are actually capable of. But they finished third last season, which was quite a respectable position. When it came to this season, I think a lot of people were quite surprised that they let the previous manager go. Since you've come in, you've had to do a completely different style, which you've mentioned there. What's that been like overall, that transition? Because I think a lot of people thought at firstly it would take a lot longer than what it has done for it to be as effective as what it has been in the opening few weeks. Been easy.
When Mark Boyne and Asif and Dale have backed us with, we are very stats driven, but also visually. So again, because of my knowledge of the levels, people were surprised that I took 3 lads from Mac, but Lauren Mendy has been absolutely incredible. The fullbacks, Trey and Kenji, I knew they could step up. And Mendy for me has probably been one of the players of the season so far. They have dynamism. I knew their character, I knew their personality. And what I've tried to do is, which we had at Macclesfield, is build a dressing room, where they're all mates, because that helps. That really, really helps. And I probably underestimated that when I was a director of football. But, because as a player, I know it's a team game, but all my years of being a player, captain 4 Premier League sides, I know it's a collective and a team, but you almost survive as a player year in, year out, because somebody wants to take your place. If you don't perform, you might be left out of the team. So again, as a player, it's very much, you survive a dressing room. As a manager, you need to galvanise and to manage players. And I think I can do that better than most. I'm not a great coach. I've got John McMahon, who is instrumental, to how I work. But my skills, which I know are getting the best out of individuals and a collective. And So changing the style, bringing in the players was quite easy. And I'm never going to make excuses. We've got, so we've got a couple of injuries at the minute, but that I'm never going to say after a game, well, we've lost or not play well because we've got X, Y, and Z out. No, because we've built a squad with 22 starters. So you'll never hear of me making excuses about, players being out. The grass was too long, the pitch was muddy. Now, listen, we've got an unbelievable opportunity with a group of players who have come together. And if you've got good players who listen, want to learn, you've got a chance. So I think we started the first game of the season with 9 new players, and we drew 2-2 at Solihull Moors. Listen, credit them. We should have won the game. You've seen the stats. When we went 2-1 up, we had to get better stopping crosses, which we've done in the next 4 games. But to start a new season with 9 new players, I hear a lot of managers and people saying, well, they need time. No, if you've got good players and they've got a clear plan and an identity, they should know what they're doing. So my staff take credit for that, the way we train. We'll pick up a few muscle injuries because how intense we are in training. You've seen how I believe we'll be the fittest team in the league. And as I think it was your podcast or another said, are they the best team in the league? Well, at the minute we are because we're top. And our XG is the best in the top 5 leagues. So right now we are the best team. Doesn't matter what we're doing now. Doesn't, because the most important thing is that we're the best team at the end of the season. That's all it counts. The playoffs is a lottery, as we've seen, as I seen at Macclesfield when we lost in the final at home to Marine. They deservedly won on the day. So the objective is to be the best team at the end of the season, with some very, very good players, but most importantly, some great people.
I mean, it's interesting that your enthusiasm comes across, Robbie, and you clearly are a lover of football. And what made you now, after 30 years, come into management? Because you could have, you clearly did all right as a player internationally and with clubs. Many could see you as was a very good pundit, and that's quite a comfortable position to be in. To then go to help Mac do what they've done, that's well documented in as much as saving that club. What made you ultimately say, right, after 30 years, I want to get on the grass and I want to be a manager and a coach?
Great question. I think I did more than all right as a player.
You know what I mean? I'm not. Yeah.
No, listen, it's a fair point. Listen, I got the best out of my ability every single time I stepped into any training ground. I made sure that I wanted to be the best player in training. That was my objective every single day. Is that when I, got into training, I was going to be the best player. That was me. And now I want to be the best manager. I want me and my staff to give our players the best sessions, and one of the reasons why I want to be a manager, because I was so frustrated as a director of football. So when the opportunity came about, I thought, what, why not give it a go? Because it's all right, me sitting behind managers thinking I would do that, but I've never been in that technical area. I don't know what the pressures were. I don't know what, you have to go through. I managed Macclesfield under 16s. I made them into the unbeaten side, an invincible season, beating academies, Cat 1 academies, with a group of lads who had been released. So that was a great learning curve for me. Everybody wanted to beat us. That went on last year. And then to be at a club and a team where they've got such belief, and you've got a group of players who fight for you, who run through brick walls. I know it's a cliche, and you see them grow, you see them learn, you see them, when they're in the dressing room before a game, feel invincible, thinking they can take on anybody, beat anybody. And last year at Macclesfield, if we'd have got anybody at home, League One, League Two, National League, I think we could have beat them. And I'm trying to get that into my Forest Green team now, that whoever we play at home or away, that when we get off that bus, we can beat anybody. That's what the belief I want to instill into my team. And they've got that at the minute. And that feeling of, giving my knowledge and my experiences to my players. Now we got a lot of young players, and seeing them grow and develop and looking up to me, that really inspires me. And I'm trying to help people, and a lot comes from my son Charlie. I try and treat all my players like I would want my both sons to be treated in football. Charlie and Freddie, one's at Reading, one's at Macclesfield, and I listen to those two. Because they understand. TikTok and social media and dressing rooms now. Because I've been out of dressing rooms, as a player since 2011. So again, they keep me up to speed with everything that goes on, and I've got all the knowledge in the world to try and give my players the best opportunity to be the best they can be. And if they're successful, that means they can have better lives for them and their families, and that inspires me. It really, really does. And inevitably, I want them to feel that we're in it together. I am the manager, but I'm not. I want to be their friend, their mentor, and I want to inspire them. But there's a line, of course, because I'm the manager. But I hope that I've got a great relationship with all my players at Mac and now all my players at Forest Green. And listen, what they understand with me is that I have to pick teams. It's never personal, never personal. I've got to pick teams to win games of football. Some lads will be left out. The hardest thing as a manager is when you want 22 starters is keeping them happy. And I think one of my managers said to me, the hardest thing to do, is to keep every player equally unhappy. And it makes sense because the centre forward wants to stay on the pitch and score goals. If he scored 2, he wants to stay on and score 3. If you take him off, he's unhappy. So again, I try and keep them all equally unhappy.
You speak about keeping everyone happy as well. I think one positive for yourself as well is the amount of depth that Forest Green Rovers have got. I think a prime example of that depth being effective was actually against my team, Halifax, the last Saturday. From my perspective, I thought we're a very level game up until you brought on those subs. And I remember saying to my dad when he was stood next to me, oh God, you've got the likes of Harry Cardwell, Ryan Innes, and Cairo Mitchell coming on the field. And I think when those subs came on, it completely changed the game. And from that point, I think there was always going to be one winner in that game.
Well, you're right. Listen, Halifax deserved a draw. No doubt about that. And I'm always honest in my assessment of a game. I will be. And they're the only team this year that should have got, I know Solihull Moors took a point, but we should have won the game. Halifax deserved the draw, and it was a big save from Luke, in the second half. We're seeing the stats. The stats were in our favour, only just, but Halifax deserved something. But again, the reason why we can bring those players on is because of the recruitment. I made 4 changes for that day, Saturday, Monday, but the players coming into the team, Tom Knowles, who's been magnificent. We started with Doige. He's going to be out for 6 weeks now with an MCL sustained in that game. We started with, I think it was Harry Whitwell, and there was one other change. We started with Bamba, who scored. Yeah. But again, I reverted back to the team on the Monday that beat Sutton 4-0 so convincingly. So, yeah, the strength in depth's good because, I'm getting backed. But again, we haven't gone into the market for players who have been there and done it. We've taken risks on players, under 21 players. I think now we've got 6 loans in, and we're hoping to get another one done next week. Under 21 players, with a point to prove, who want to get better, who are going to be allowed to make mistakes and be creative. And we've brought players from lower, Yaya come from Eastbourne Borough, the 3 Macclesfield lads. So again, we can find players like that because of our knowledge and because of, we do the stats, we do all the charts, all the graphs to look at, comparisons with this player, we're playing in that position. So again, we're very much aligned as a group. And when we go for a player, there's a reason. And you've just seen, we've just brought in James Balagizi from Liverpool today. And that was on the basis of, Doige's got injured and Gilly, who come from Sheffield United, who was sensational in the 2 games. And losing those 2 players, we thought, right, what do we need? Everybody automatically would think we'd bring a 9 in. But when you look at Cairo Mitchell, Harry Cardwell, do we bring a 9 in for 4 to 6 weeks? But if we bring a 9 in, he's going to want to play. So again, we thought, right, when we see teams going in a low block against us, and there's no space in behind, Do we need a profile of a 9 to run in behind? Well, no, we don't, because we're not afforded any space. So we thought, let's go for a 10, because we've got Nick Horton, and in games, if we can go to a 4-1-4-1 and have 2 10s in James Balaghese and Horton, or we got Jaden Clark who can go in there. Or Kyle McAllister, and we can put different people out wide. So again, we've got different scenarios, different formations for different games. So the reasoning for that was it was a well thought out process between Mark, Asif, myself, Dale backed it, that let's go for a 10 instead of a 9, because Doidge won't be far away. And I just thought long term, it'll be better for the dynamic of the group to have another option with 2 10s. So again, we think about it. It's another great signing for us. So we're really excited.
Just go on, sorry, Paul.
No, I was going to say, Sam, we're almost a month into the season. You've got Braintree on Saturday. That'll be your 6 games. What are your early thoughts on the National League, the depth of quality, the teams? How it seems quite bonk to us. We talk about it every week, and it's a bonkers league. There's always something going on. What are your thoughts on the National League now you're in it?
Yes, every game's tough. Every game gives you different challenges. First game, Solihull Moors, we knew the way they'd set up. We knew they loved the diagonal to Creaney, the system they played. But it was a difficult game. In some ways, I wish they'd have stayed at 11 v 11, because I think the game would have opened up more. We create that many chances, but, in a low block, when there's, they don't move out of that shape, it's difficult to break them down. Well, listen, we should have won the game. Then we played Yeovil. Listen, Yeovil changed. So we can do the analysis on teams, which we've done, which we do every game. We show the players minimal. I don't focus on the opposition, which people might sound strange, because I want it to be about us. Because I know that if we run faster, run harder, work harder, cover more ground, sprint distances or more, with our quality, we'll win more games than we lose, because opposition will change against us. Eastleigh, Sutton were good, but again, we scored early. Then they've got to come out, and then we were magnificent. Eastleigh were very, very good defensively. Did they deserve anything out of the game? No, they didn't. We deserved to win the game. So they defended well at times, but inevitably, when slow in game management caught up, because there was 8 added minutes and we scored in the 96, and that was due to a tactical change. So again, Braintree will be very difficult. It's the first time I've had a 4th official on the side, really, because at step 3 you didn't. I only had it in the FA Trophy. So again, that's been encouraging. I think the officials have been very, very good. And again, it's the stadiums are better, the pitches are better. But again, we're in a position where we have to, get used to different services, different things, But the good thing is, a lot of my players played at step 3 last year, so they know it. They know it. That we're humble. We want to go there, and give everybody, our fans, an opportunity to see a progressive team who play with a high intensity. So, to answer your question, it's a very demanding league. As you've said, I heard Luke earlier, is it match day 6 already? And it's like, we're still in August. We go to Braintree, we go to Morecambe on Tuesday. Delighted to see Morecambe. Brilliant. What a brilliant story. Glad to see they're playing football again, obviously, because now I was at Mac and I know how that affects the community. So for their fans, their staff, their players, their volunteers, brilliant to see them, playing games. That's going to be a tough one. They're all tough games, Paul. They're all tough games with different challenges. And again, you can set up a plan, but I think we were doing a series on our social media, mic'd up, and I wear the mic, and you could see how hard not just the players work, but a coaching staff to try and get a result. All we can do as a management team is try and give my players the best opportunity to win a game of football. How you get there doesn't matter. So on Monday, we changed formation 4 times, and we ended up against a low block, and we ended up with a 3-4-3 with Harry Cardwell, Ryan Innes, and Cairo Mitchell in a front 3, because we couldn't break through them. The keeper was pulling off worldies. We had numerous set pieces, but inevitably we thought, right, the last throw of the dice is let's with Jordan's left foot, putting balls up to Ryan, pulling away and get the knockdowns. And it worked because the goal came from a knockdown. Whitwell on the front foot, nicked it, got a free kick. And my philosophy is, and you'll see this, at 0-0, I'm not settling for a point. And I said to my players at half-time, and I've said to every single game, at 0-0, at 1-1, we go for the win. And if we get done on a counter or set piece, I'll hold my hands up and I'll protect my players, because that's my philosophy. I'm not satisfied with a draw. We're not sitting on a draw. If you can't win it, don't lose it. No, I'm over the opposite. If we, let's go and win it. And if we lose it, I'll take responsibility for my players. And it come through us being on the front foot. If that free kick wasn't given, it was a 4v2 in Eastleigh's favour with 2 minutes to go, and they might have scored. But I'd have been in to the press afterwards saying, listen, the lads were magnificent. I wanted to win the game. And I've said to them, be brave, be positive, get on the front foot. And if they could score, I'll take responsibility. So for me, at 0-0, at 1-1, at 2-2, let's go and win the game. That's what I'm like. And that's what my philosophy is.
We've had a lot of people come in tonight, of course, wanting to ask questions. If anyone does want to ask a question and we've not already asked it, I will put it on screen. We've also had a few people like experiences of actually being on your show as well, 606. Christopher's come and said, evening, Robbie. I spoke to you on 606 a few times about the Heed. How much are you looking forward to playing, going face-to-face in the dugout with your hero, Mark Hughes, of course, at Carlisle United?
Oh, it's on my birthday as well. I think it's on the zone, isn't it? It's on the 18th of October. It's my hero. Spoke about him numerous times. They've had a good start, very good start. Regan Linney, doing unbelievably well. They've got some very good players and a manager who I think I was his first signing in club football, who he paid money for. Was my manager at Wales. Played with him. As a young apprentice at Manchester United, he gave me a lift home to Wrexham. So again, my idol, my hero, I had, pictures of him on my wall. But now I'm against him. And for those 90 minutes, I want to do everything I can to beat him. I'll wind him up. I know that. He'll be ready for it. But I have massive respect for every single manager. And that's one thing I've learned, is that as a pundit, when you've never been in the technical area making decisions, when you've got numerous phone calls a day, when you've got opinions behind you, when you've got X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't stop. And I think it's made me a better pundit as well, with insight. So again, for any manager to stand in the technical area for a number of years, they're brilliant. Honestly, I can't respect them enough. And it's great if you want to start, if you've been in the Premier League for a number of years, automatically people think you'll get a job in the Championship or League One. But I wanted to start lower. I wanted to earn the right, to get higher. And I want to do that with Forest Green. I wanted to do it with Mac, but I took an opportunity at another brilliant football club with an opportunity. And I want to get Forest Green back into the league. And I believe it will happen in the 4 years I'm there. We all know as a manager. You've said 2 managers have left their roles today in the National League. We all know if results don't go for us, we know what happens to managers, but I'm not scared of that. I've never been scared of anything in my life. As I say, I'm doing a job. My players are doing a job in unbelievable facilities, a job that they love. Yeah, there's times when it's going to be testing, but inevitably, my 2 boys said to me, what's the worst that can happen? Well, I get the sack. Well, I've got a beautiful family, a healthy family. My mum, rings me every day and loves me. So again, what's the worst that can happen? I've given it my best shot. I've had a wonderful career, and but I know for a fact, whatever happens, I've turned over every stone to try and be as successful as I can. And my club now, Forest Green, will feel the benefits of that.
I'm sure you've already had this quite a lot, Robbie, particularly as well at Macclesfield as well. But someone's come in here and said Roots Hall will give you a nice welcome. For you personally, of course, being quite, well known like you are in the division, I've already witnessed it. When Halifax played you, fans will try and wind you up. Now, the impression that I'm getting is you're the person who will actually thrive off that. The actual fans winding you up, because you can kind of give it back 10 times more.
Yeah, listen, it's when I was booed as a player, I thought it was a compliment. I really did. And that was fuel to my fire. And what people have got to understand, that those boos and that negativity and the social media posts and the jealousy, that's fuel to our fire as a group. And that galvanizes us. So again, I urge people to do that within the boundaries. You know, there was friendly banter at Halifax. I remember we were coming down the tunnel, excuse me, and there was a gentleman who said something to me, and there was a Halifax member of staff with me, and I went, never mind, listen, we've got the 3 points, see you later. And I laughed. So again, you know, there's got to be a respect. I respect everybody, you know, especially in non-leagues. I think it's a wonderful place for football, for fans. You know, I really do, and I love it. But again, you know, Roots Hall, Southend, I think I've been there as a player, and I think it was in a pre-season game. But again, a fantastic football club who beat Forest Green in the playoffs last year. Good ground, you know, it's compact, and we're looking forward to it. They're a very, very good side. You will be up there, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Robbie. And I guess, you know, it's not your first rodeo. You know how to deal with these fans, and I suppose being in the non-league arena, which almost them all full time, is we can get closer to people like you, and I suppose there's an appreciation, and sometimes people do try and take advantage of it. But you know, listen, it's great to have characters like yourself in non-league and in the National League, because you know, when we had the Wrexham and the Notts County, you know, battle a couple of years ago, that really raised the profile of the league. So having yourselves, Mark Hughes, Simon Grayson, as well as all those up and coming managers coming into the National League, allows people like Luke and I to talk about on a weekly basis. More people are coming through the doors because of it. So, you know, it can only be beneficial. So, you know, we're grateful to have you on board in the National League. And
yeah. But also, I think it's great because it's a platform where, listen, I'm going to make mistakes. And I made loads of mistakes at Macclesfield last year. You know, so we were at step 3 where the facilities weren't as good as they are now at step 1. So again, you know, the abuse I received last year was, you know, at times off the scale, and it was dreadful. But again, now, you know, where the stadiums are better, there's more, you know, stewards, you know, there's more volunteers. It's great, and I love it. Listen, Halifax's ground was beautiful, wonderful. What a ground. We're going to Braintree. I've never been there. So we're going to grounds. I'm going to grounds which I've never been to, and I'm looking forward to and excited. And every ground will, you know, give us a different test. But we're in a position where we'll be up there. Listen, we'll finish in the playoffs. You know, this might come back to haunt me, but we'll finish in the top 7. I've got no doubt about that. Anything else will be a failure for me. I think the brand of football we're playing is exciting. It's dynamic. It's relentless, you know. And I believe that we're doing it a different way. You know, I love pace. And the one thing my recruitment style was at Mac is, what did I hate playing against? What did defenders hate? Well, I knew that I hated playing against somebody who used to, like Frank Lampard, used to run past me all the time, and I had to run back with him, you know, and to the point where you have to keep doing it. And, you know, when I played against quick players and they run past me, I was thinking, whoa, I hate playing against that. What the defenders hate? Running back towards their own goal. So I wanted to create a team at Mac who had all those qualities, and that's what we've done at Forest Green. But also, what the good thing is, which we can do, which we got at Halifax, and which we got against Eastleigh, was we got a team who can dig out results. So we can mix it. We can play with pace. We can play patterns. We can create overloads. But one thing my team can do is we can fight, and we can dig in for each other. We can get results and that's the worry for the rest of the league, that we can get results by not playing well, digging in, and you know, doing the horrible side.
I think that's what's very important as well. And I'm only mentioning this game because obviously I got to see you for the full 90 minutes. I've seen highlights of other games, but I can't watch the full 90 minutes. So, you know, when you came to Halifax, the way you managed to change the game for me, it's a sign of a good team, because like I've said, I actually thought that Halifax was going toe-to-toe with you guys. until, of course, you got the late winner. But that was because you had the ability to be able to bring on players who actually made a difference in a game. Like, I'm sure you'll be aware, there's a lot of players who have clearly got the ability in football, but particularly in a tough game like that, where it's 50-50, maybe the home side are slightly getting on top of things. So for players to actually come on the field and make a difference like they did, for me, that's a sign of a side that could potentially, be in a title race this season. I know yourself, you might not want to be getting ahead of yourselves, but from my perspective, when I look at Forest Green now, I see them as a side that can certainly compete for the title, which I'll be honest, I didn't expect in the summer.
Well, I believe we'll, I know it's early, but I honestly believe we'll be competing for the title. I really do. And that's my belief I've got in my players. And I want them to feel that. They competed last year for the title, but we've changed the way we're playing now. And we'll lose games of football. We will lose games because the way we play. But the thing with the Halifax game was, I believe what me and my staff can see is our substitutions. If you look at if you've done the stat now of goal contributions from substitutes, I reckon we'd have the most in the top 5 leagues. Again, that's not out there, but I'm sure we will have, because we can change it, and that's what everybody needs to buy into. So again, Saturday going to Braintree, I usually name a team on a Friday, but this week I'm going to hold off to Saturday because I'm going to look at the pitch. So, I'm going to look at it. What's it like? We've got a game Tuesday, because I believe that what I've said to my loan players, my young players, is that if we win a game hypothetically on a Saturday or a Tuesday and the 11 play, they're not automatically going to start, because if I've got loan players, young players who need to develop and get better, if I keep the winning team all the time, they're not going to get better. So I've pulled the young players in, the loan players, and said, listen, I'll rotate you no matter if we win, because you've been stuck on the bench for a season. You've come here to develop, to get games. So you will be playing games. You'll probably play 30 games each. So again, they're on board. And it's how you manage these youngsters. Again, I'm fair, I'm honest. I think I can manage players. But the big thing is about the Halifax game is, I just thought there was a period, Luke, and you were there, where they were getting on top and dominating in the middle of the park, and they were leaving 3 up. So I said, right, listen, where can we create the space? And I thought, right, let's go to wing backs. So I wanted to go 3 for 3 up the top end of defensively. Let's go man for man. No problem with that. But then let's go to wing backs, and the goals come from Knowlesy, who done unbelievable down the right-hand side, and cut it back for Cairo, who was a sub. So again, it was that little tweak where we thought, you know what, where can we identify where we can now get on top of Halifax? And that worked. But it all came from, the big chance missed in, I think it was 60-odd minute, when it was a 1v1, our keeper saved it. But again, we hit the other side of the bar at 2-1, the game would have been over. Yeah. But it's the way we've seen the game out, the game management in the corner. And that's what this group can do. They've got so many ways to win a game of football. But you have to work hard and, as a management team, to say, right, what's needed. And I believe so far with my, Tom, the S&C coach, and our physios and everybody, we all, and Mark Bowen and Dale and Asif and the volunteers and the people at the club, behind the scenes, at the training ground, when we win, we're creating this culture. We all win together and everybody feels so high. And we haven't lost yet, but we will. When we lose, people will feel deflated because we're as one. And that's what I wanted to create. That's what we created at Macclesfield. And that's what we're creating here.
Jensen's coming with a question, and we'll pick out one or two, because I know we're going on a little bit in terms of obviously hitting near the hour marker. But Jensen's come and said, hi, Robbie, out of all the clubs that wanted you at their club, why did you choose Forest Green?
Because you've got a chance. You've got an opportunity with good people. And I knew Dale. Some people said we wouldn't get on. We get on so well. As we do with Asif and Mark. And the minute I met Dale and the way they treated my son when he was 18, the people behind the scenes and how they made me and my family feel when we come, they couldn't do anything. They couldn't do more for us. So again, I knew how many good people were here. And that was one of the reasons. You want to work with good people and you want to have an opportunity. So I'll be forever grateful for Dale, Mark, and Asif for giving me this opportunity. And I've said to him, whatever happens, I can promise. I promised Dale that I will leave the club in a far better position when I leave. That's where the academy. We've obviously the National League Cup. We beat West Brom. Young Thomas got a goal on his debut at 17. We're going to give players opportunities. We have players trained with the first team from the academy, so now it's all integrated. There's a culture now where, we just feel as one, and it's again, if we don't go up, and we'll reassess in the summer. But already you can see how galvanized the fans are. The fans. I know people say, well, they only get 1,500, 2,000, but let me tell you, there was 2,300 at the weekend. On Dale's initiative, where all kids were for free. It was packed. It was loud. The people playing the drums, the atmosphere was like there was 4,000 or 5,000 in there. And you see the celebrations after the game, and some people might think it takes it too far, but if the fans feel part of it, and that's what you need. You need a collaboration with everybody at the football club. And they're on board. And listen, I'm not naive enough to think we lose games, I won't know what I'm doing. I get it. I've no problem with that. But the one thing I'm not is stubborn. I'll change the way I play if I aren't going for us. I'll change in game. But my players know that I'm in it for them. I'm in it for them, and I'm in it for the club. I'll do everything I can for my players. Everything. And all you got to do is ask the Mac players and the Forest Green players who are there now. And I'll do anything I can personally for them on and off the pitch. I'll manage them in the correct way. How I want to be managed, and again, little things like, which is a little insight. So you've seen the 4 changes against Halifax, Luke. We beat Sutton 4-0. We were magnificent. But with the game Saturday, Monday, I thought, right, as a player, would I want to have been rested? No, I could have played every game. But I said, listen, I believe in the squad that much, and I always say that. I'm going to make 4 changes because the players coming in are at the same level. I could have made 7, 8 changes the same level. So when we won 2-1 and our first away victory, we had the game Monday. So my team talk was pretty simple. I said, listen, I'm going to revert back to the team that beat Sutton. And the reason being that Knowlesy was the player of the match. He was magnificent. But Trey, who had played against Sutton, was also magnificent. So I said to the lads, listen, I'm going to revert back to that team because you were rested. You went dropped. Nobody's ever dropped in this team. You're rested because you're all good players. But as a player, if I'd have played against Sutton and I was rested against Halifax and the team won, I'd be at home or on the bench thinking, oh, if he plays well, I won't play Monday. So that's not fair on the player who was rested. So automatically, I put those players back in and everybody's on board with it. So they all know exactly that they're not dropped. They were rested, so they go back in. And I'll probably make changes Saturday and Monday again, a Tuesday. But it's because I've got the strength and depth, as you said, and the players of the same ability who will give me everything. And they know that.
One final question for you, Robbie, just from myself. You've mentioned there about Forest Green Rovers being, you feel have got the potential to win this league this season or be in the top 7. Who do you think, when you look at other teams, will be your biggest competitor? Of course, York City, the favourites before ball was kicked, have just recently sacked the manager this morning. So who do you actually think is going to be your biggest competitor this season?
I think we can be our biggest competitor if we don't have belief. I think at the minute we can only be ourselves. That's what my belief I've got in these players. Honestly, they're that good and that they got the belief. So we can be our biggest competitor. But if you look at the Carlisle, fantastic team, good manager, great fan base, they'll be right up there. York will be, Southend will be, Rochdale, they've done some great business. They'll be right up there. And there'll be other teams, but let's be realistic. Whatever league you compete in, the bigger the budget, the better opportunity you have. Listen, let's not be naive enough to think that, a team with a £50,000 budget at this level will win the league. They won't. Your resources help. Of course they do. Having a fantastic owner helps, and an alignment, as I have with Mark and Asif. But you can have the means to try and win leagues, but you've got to get your recruitment right. You're only as good as your recruitment. Whatever happens, whatever people say, and if you've got the players who buy into it and are willing to work hard, and you find a formation which, they can adapt to. So I've got 3 or 4 formations, and the recruitment process was that, for instance, right now, my 2 fullbacks are Trey Pemberton and Neil Kengi, and I play a back 4. But I know instantly I can drop Mendy into the centre half position from a 6. Trey and Kenji can go to wing back, so I can go to a 5 almost immediately at any point in the game without making a sub. You know, I can do that all over the park. I can bring subs on to do that as well. So again, the recruitment process was that we have isolated players like Nick Orton, the best 10 in the league. Now we've got Balagizi, so we have 2 10s. But Jaden Clark can play on the left, the right, or a 10. Kyle McAllister the same. Cairo Mitchell's a 9, specific 9. So again, our recruitment process was, let's identify players who can play a number of positions so we can change in game without making subs. Because the last thing I want to do is make a sub in the first half, and take anybody off, because then it's a mistake from us, but you're punishing the player. So yeah, it's a brilliant opportunity. It's a brilliant football club. I believe we can win the league. Will we? Who knows? Who knows? It's a long season, and we will get, we will have ups and downs, but inevitably the feel good factor's back. The fans are enjoying it. We're enjoying it. And I believe we go into every game thinking that we can win. When that whistle goes and they cross that line, the belief in my players at the minute is off the scale. They've got that much confidence, that much belief in the way we play, and exciting. You've seen the stats. The stats are unbelievable. We're creating, I think the average number of shots per game in the National League's 14. We've had 20 per game. So again, we're doing things right. And it's going to be exciting. Wealdstone, listen, they had a great start. I think they've got 9 points. They've had a great start. York have got 6 points, I think. It's 6 points, played a game less. So again, there'll be other teams up there. There'll be a team that comes out of the pack. But every game's going to be difficult, and we respect every opposition. We're humble, but the belief I have, do I believe we can go unbeaten all season? Yeah, I really do. We won't. We'll lose. Let me just make that clear. We will lose games. But the belief I have in that group, and they have at the minute, is they're going into every game feeling invincible. And listen, we might get beat Saturday at Braintree, but it'll be not for the want of giving everything.
Paul, you got anything to finally add before we let Robbie go?
No, I was just going to say, thank you for your time, Robbie. It's been much appreciated. I know you obviously listened in last week, and you've reached out and sort of said, look, I'm happy to come on, and it's been a great insight, and your honesty and enthusiasm it comes across in bundles, and I can only wish you the best of luck in the rest
thanks.
of the league.
I've got a question for you too, because obviously I listen to podcasts. I think it's somebody's, not one of you two, but others said I have a celebrity appointment. They were unsure of me at this level. Why do you think that was? Luke, you first.
Why? I think
not you. You didn't say those things. Why do you think the narrative was, that? Why do you think?
If I'm being brutally honest here,
be honest.
I think what people will obviously look at when they look at yourself as well, they'll think, right, he's not managed in the National League before, he's not managed in the Football League, and potentially, and this has just been brutal here, what people have done, and I think you've actually proven them wrong in the first 5 games, I should say. I think people might just automatically look, they've only brought him in because it's the name Robbie Savage, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's fair, but
that's not my opinion, by the way.
I know, mate, but it's fair.
Yeah.
But again, if I wanted to have that narrative, would I have not held out for a League One, League Two job, just going straight from the Premier League? But I didn't. I wanted to do it. I managed under 13s, under 14s, under 15s, under 16s, getting up on a Sunday morning with my son's team, putting the nets up, doing all that, getting up, taking training 2 nights a week in the pouring rain, Again, I'd done all that, and I learned there, and it's a great learning curve. Grassroots is brilliant. Any managers out there, what we go through, for teams, for grassroots so I learned there, and then to manage at step 3, unpaid at step 3, to give it, bad an opportunity. Rob Smethurst, magnificent, what a football club. But again, my knowledge of football, sitting in green rooms with Glenn Hoddle, Rio Ferdinand, Gareth Bale, Ali McCoist, Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, You know, I can the names go on, being a sponge, listening to them to get an insight, you know, working on all the TV shows and, you know, radio, gaining knowledge, watching every game. So again, if I'd have gone straight in at championship level, I wouldn't be ready. I wouldn't be ready. So, you know, what people saying celebrity, but I'm not. I'm a hard-working individual who's earned the right. And we've done nothing yet. We've had 6 games, won 5, drew 1. One was in the National League Cup because it's still a game where youngsters have opportunity. But again, I've earned the right, and I'm not doing it. I'm doing it because I love it and because I feel that I can give something back to a fantastic football club. But again, the narrative's fair, but again, it just amazes me when I see other managers who haven't done, you know, 3 years at grassroots level, step 3, being a director for 4 years, who then get opportunities higher. Nothing's ever said.
No, listen, Robbie, I think, you know, the true National League fan, those that know the league, probably wouldn't have underestimated what you had done. From my perspective, I thought it was a really odd appointment from your point of view, because obviously what you'd done with Matt was so good and obviously documented through the TV show with Rob Smethurst. And, you know, I was really surprised that you made that jump, if you like, and didn't follow it through with Matt to the National League, because clearly that's where you were sort of driving towards. Listen, I've heard interviews and seen it and get why you've done it from a personal perspective. I think when it comes to that celebrity issue, the name, the National League is such a hard league to get out of because it's only one up, and then you got that lottery of the next 6 playing in the playoffs, and there's some big bastard clubs in this league who don't want to be in it, you know, and there's a bum fight to get out of it. And I think they always try and then hook in that name, you know, Mark Hughes, Simon Grayson. We've had them in the past. So I think they're just misinformed, probably a little bit ignorant to what you had done. And you can't.
But listen, Mark Hughes, we've said my hero. Brian know more about these levels than Mark Hughes.
Yeah, no, completely.
You know what I mean? So again, even though he's my hero and he's a brilliant manager, but if you ask Mark to name 100, 200, 300 National League players down to step 4, he could. I don't believe he could. Listen, he's a brilliant manager, but has earned the right. And I respect Mark, because Mark managed at Man City, at Fulham, at Blackburn, you know, all these clubs, Bradford. But now I love the fact that Mark Hughes is managing the National League. I love that. I absolutely love it, because let's be totally honest, some players with that career wouldn't. But we do. We are, because we love it and we feel. And for me, it was an incremental step. You know, it was an incremental step. Who am I to think that I could go and manage right now after 1 season at Mac in the Football League? You know, it's the perfect opportunity for me, with great people, with people who give me an opportunity, and I want to repay them. I don't know if you've seen the new training ground at Junction 13. It's unbelievable. 2 state-of-the-art Deso pitches, exactly the same grass length, dimensions as the first team pitch, cut the same patterns. So when our players step onto that every single day, that when they go onto a Saturday at home, it's exactly the same field environment. 2 unbelievable pitches, 36 sprinklers, remote controlled. That if we want it wet, to zip it about, we can do it. Brilliant training facilities, canteen, chefs, you know, state-of-the-art gym, everything there. So when you get shown around that training ground, I'm thinking, wow, this is unbelievable. You see the plans for the new stadium. So again, the incremental step for me was go from 2 mornings a week, because the narrative of Mac is the full time. They're not. You know, again, people say they're full time because it helps them if they get beat, but it's not. It's 2 mornings a week. The budget at Mac was bigger because the lads had to take 2 mornings off work. So hypothetically, at Macclesfield, just say I want to sign you, Paul, and you were working in the day and then you were training 2 nights a week. You might be on £500 with your job and £500 to play for your club. So that's £1,000 a week. But because at Mac, they had to take 2 days off a week. Your weekly wage then as your job might be 300. We'd have to pay you 700, to get the days off work. So it was the same amount of hours, 2 hours on a Tuesday, 2 hours on a Thursday, but in the daytime. So again, when my next incremental step was, how will I acclimatise or get used to being in full-time football as a manager? And it's hard. It is hard because it's non-stop, but I've got a great team around me. One of the biggest things is the sacrifices you have to make, but you do. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I'm on my own now in an apartment, in Cheltenham. My family's up north. Charlie's in Reading. 2.5, 3 years ago, we were all in our family home all together. Little things like I miss my dogs. I miss my family. But again, these are sacrifices you have to make if you want to be successful. On my own. And of course, when the winter comes and you're losing games, coming back on your own, when you haven't got friends or family around you, and because you've got players and you've got colleagues, but we all know in football you don't have that many friends. So again, the sacrifices I've made, and the easiest thing for me would have been is taking a job up north near my family home, so I could travel every day. It would have been easy to stay at Mac, because I could have stayed there for 10 years. But I've taken an opportunity which I believe is the best for me and my family. And again, these are sacrifices you have to make. And it's at the minute it's going well, but I know we'll have tough times. And I know that you on podcast later in the year you'll be saying, "Oh, was it the wrong appointment?" I get it, but I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem with that, Paul. It's a game of opinions, and it's a game of results. But again, the one thing which is the best thing for me is I've got an owner who trusts me. I'm transparent with. We speak every day, as I do with Mark and Asif. We're all on the same page. And the biggest thing he said, and he's reiterated numerous times, he wanted to change the culture, get a more dynamic team, get the fans on the edge of the seats. He's coming to every game now. I don't think he's there Saturday, but every home game, he's got that love of it back. He's there. He's, as an owner, and I've been there, there's nothing worse, than not feeling part of it. He feels part of his football club and he's thriving and he's enjoying it. And we're all in it together. And that's the feeling that we've got. So again, you can see I'm enthused. I love talking football. I'll be up at 8 o'clock in the morning. What I didn't realise is how intense. I was intense anyway at Macclesfield, but this is, for instance, we have 2 injuries, then we're on the analysis, the recruitment. 6 hours on the phone yesterday on my day off. I give the lads 2 days off to be with their families. That's massively important for me, family time. I like to give the players consecutive days off because they can spend more time with their families. That's huge for me. But again, I was on the phone for 6 hours yesterday, trying to get things sorted. So it doesn't stop, but I wouldn't change it because I absolutely love it.
Robbie, thanks for joining us tonight. I do genuinely appreciate it. It was quite a good surprise, to be honest. I was just driving home and Paul rings me up to say, Robbie Savage will come on the podcast tonight. So, yeah, thanks for coming on.
Who do you think will be up there?
Go on, then.
Who's your top 5? I've seen your predictions before the start of the season. I think you had it for 5th or 4th, Luke.
I had you. Yeah, I think I had you 5th. Paul, I'm going to let you go first because I had to answer the last one first. So,
I had you 3rd, Robbie. I had you 3rd. I thought, right. Getting Nick Horton in was a massive coup. We spoke about it on our podcast and many others over the years. He was a brilliant National League footballer for Fylde. So getting him in was a real. At the time we were doing the predictions, you just signed him. So yeah, I had York up there with Carlisle, yourself, Southend, and Rochdale. So probably a given for most pundits or most sort of observers of the National League. But I certainly think that's the first 6 games is going to put you towards the first place rather than 3rd place. But it's a slog of a season. It's sort of 40 odd games. So
I'm happy with 5th. I'm happy with 5th, Luke. Yes, and I said to the players, because I see it. I say, listen, people saying we're going to finish 5th. I said I'm happy with that because I know we'll be up there.
I think, to be honest, like I've said, I probably would have you higher at the moment, but it can change so quickly. Yeah. And I think the football fans' opinion, like, I'm not saying you will at all, but let's say if Forest Green lose 1 or 2 games, everyone's opinion will just change, and it'll be like, we'll be back to saying York will go on to win the league. For example, at the moment, I'm not thinking York are going to go on and win the legue. However, for all we know, the next 5 games, they could win 5 in a row.
York will be up there. York will 100% be up there. They're a fantastic, big club. Went so close last year. They'll be up there. The teams, let's be totally honest, the teams with the budgets at the higher end will be up there.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
No.
And because they've got the opportunity to bring in the best players. Yeah, they got the revenues to do that, so they'll be up there. It's the teams with the smaller budgets, who all want to be in the position that we're in. And again, I'm very lucky. I'm very, very lucky to be a manager of one of the teams with an opportunity to challenge.
But
there'll be some managers in this league who are better than me, far better than me, far more knowledge, far more experience, but may never be given that opportunity at a club who can challenge at the top end of the division because of circumstance. So I'm very, very lucky, and I go into every single day of the week trying to repay an owner who's shown that belief in me, and I want to reward him with a brand of football which he can be proud of. So again,
Robbie,
there's better managers than me in this league, a lot better.
Yeah, but an observation over the last few seasons, and when Luke and I have been commenting on it and speaking about it, was there's a lot of teams that have healthy budgets, but there's no point having a healthy budget if you're an absolute basket case. And we've seen a lot of teams where they haven't got themselves together, no matter how much their budget is, to move from what's on paper to what's on the pitch and actually prove your point. And I suppose
but that's why I think,
right?
Paul, that's why I think the sporting director's key. Mark Bowen, you've seen what he did at Reading. The group he created there and the fees they've gone on to sell for. You look at, he brought Charlie in on a free, Harvey Knibb, Sam Smith, Tyler Binden, and he's doing exactly the same now at Forest Green. So again, you need an alignment from the manager, sporting director, the CEO and the owner. And if you're on the same page and you get the players on the same page and you get your recruitment right and they work hard, you've got an opportunity. So again, that's why we'll have an opportunity, because we're all on the same page with the same work ethic and we understand each other.
Cool.
Robbie, thanks very much for coming on tonight. Like I said, I do really appreciate it. And if you ever are bored again and you want something to do, drop us a message and we'll happily have you on once again. So, yeah.
Right. Keep up the good work, guys.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, good luck Saturday, Sam.
Good luck Saturday.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
See you later.
See you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
See if he knows how to get off. I'll remove you. It's fine, and that'll be easier. Yeah, there we go. Brilliant. Well, that was, of course, Robbie Savage. We were surprised with that, so we may be changing the title, the thumbnail, everything tonight for tonight's podcast. But no, it's a pleasure to get him on, and particularly when someone's so honest as well. What you'll often see is football managers may come on a podcast, but they probably won't be very honest at all. So it's good to actually have him on and to get his insight about Forest Green.
Yeah, well, no, it was fantastic. It was. I mean, he joked just before we went on air that you were thinking that he's going to be on for an hour and a half, and he thought that'd be too long. And we're an hour and 8 minutes in, so
we could have been on for about 3 hours with him, and we'd still be like there wanting to ask him more questions.
Yeah, his enthusiasm for the league, his enthusiasm for Forest Green is clear. I think that celebrity appointment, because it's Robbie Savage, he's proving them wrong right now, and I think from what he said, he'll continue to prove people wrong. Admittedly, Luke, me and you weren't those that sort of suggested it was because it was Robbie Savage. As I said, I was surprised he left Mac because they were in such a good place to sort of progress. But he's done it for his own personal gains, and that's completely fair enough. And listen, it's nice. All the managers we've had on have been refreshingly good and honest, and it's great as a National League follower to have that insight from the team that are top of the league at the moment. So yeah, a little bit of a surprise for him to come on. It sort of kicked out what we were going to talk about, but we can't stop that opportunity when it comes. So hope everyone who heard it listened and enjoyed that, because we certainly did.
Yeah. What we're going to do now, as we're an hour and 10 minutes in, we're not going to speak about Cooper and York City's situation in much detail at all. We're going to go straight into the predictions, and we may talk about them slightly as we're going on with the predictions. But we'll have to just go with it tonight. We'll have to roll with it, to be honest, overall. But before we do get onto the predictions, these are the scores on the doors. I'm still in the lead just about. Me and Joe had some great game weeks. We both got 10 points. And if you do want to play along this game week, this is how you do it. Right then, so we're going to get straight into it. The first fixture that we're going to preview is Solihull Moors versus Southend United. Solihull, of course, not got off to the best of starts this season. As for Southend, dropped points at the weekend, but to a strong Hartlepool side at Roots Hall. Firstly, Paul, how do you see this one going?
Oh, yeah, Solihull, a wretched run of form. I was surprised to see two managers lose their job this week before Matt Taylor did. They're not looking too healthy at the moment. Lost their director of football as well in the summer. So Southend are going to be too strong for Solihull, even though they are away from home. They're a strong, resilient side. We saw them go toe-to-toe with York in a couple of weeks ago at the top of the table clash at the time. So I think Southend are going to win 2-0.
Snap. We both agree. Solihull Moors are one of four sides that have yet to win a game in the National League this season. We've both got our opinions about Matt Taylor, and considering that two managers have already been booted out of the door, you'd like to think if it carries on how it is doing at Solihull Moors, if they do have any ambition, he may be the third. But for this match, I've gone for a 2-0 Southend United win. If you want to put your predictions in, guys, I'll try remember to put them on the screen, and we'll have a look at what you guys have been predicting too. Moving on to the next fixture we're going to look at. Of course, it's Braintree Town coming up against Robbie Savage's Forest Green Rovers. We should have kept him on for this game, to be fair. But no, Braintree themselves, I think everyone's got opinions about them struggling this season quite significantly. Yet they've certainly held their own so far in the opening 5 fixtures or so. However, for me, in this match, coming up against Forest Green at the moment, we've just heard from Robbie there, and we've actually seen them play as well. I just think most sides are going to struggle again against them currently at the moment. So I'm actually going to go for a 3-0 Forest Green Rovers win. How do you see it going?
I've gone slightly more favourable to Braintree with a 3-1 Forest Green win. I think you alluded to it, Luke. XGs are high on the attacking side; they're low on the defending side in favour of Forest Green. Braintree, we think, are going to be one of those teams that may struggle in this league, and Forest Green will certainly look at that and think, we've got to take point. York can't play in this weekend, so that will immediately give them an advantage, in points above someone like York and Southend, at the top. So they've got to take advantage of the games like Braintree, the fact they've not lost a game this season. So I think they're going to be too strong and win 3-1.
Moving on to the next fixture we will look at, it will be Eastleigh versus Altrincham. Two mixed sides so far this season. I think both are certainly capable of potentially pushing for the playoffs, but consistency may be an issue. Altrincham, of course, got a 2-0 win against Solihull Moors, a much-needed win after losing to Morecambe. As for Eastleigh, I don't think there's any disgrace in losing to Forest Green. Of course, they kept them out. They nearly got a point there. They kept them out for 90 minutes. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, Eastleigh, a funny one, aren't they? A couple of weeks ago, we thought the manager was going to get sacked. Didn't happen. The rumours went around. It didn't happen. And ever since then, they've sort of kicked on a little bit. You're right. Losing to Forest Green at this present time, as we said, haven't lost this season. It's not a disgrace to lose to them. It was only 1-0 right at the death. So I've gone with a 2-2 draw with this one. I think they're both capable of scoring goals. And I think you're right. They're both going to be they're going to be inconsistent, and if they're more consistent, they're going to be challenging. But they both had mixed starts, so I've gone with a 2-2 draw with this one.
I've gone for an Eastleigh 2-1 win. I was kind of going along the same lines as you, but Eastleigh, very unfortunate against Forest Green in terms of being able to defend that long and not be able to pick anything up from that game. They'll be quite frustrated conceding so late. As for Altrincham, very mixed at the moment. If you saw them at Morecambe, dominated the game, yet couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. Of course, against Solihull, it was a slightly different story. I do fear for them in terms, it's quite hard to explain on the forward side of things at times when it doesn't click. I think they've got some really good wingers in the likes of Reading, but they're not goal scorers. And I look across that team, and there's not many players that I feel that have got the potential to be able to get into double digits this season. Like Reading is a very dangerous winger for me, for example. Yet I don't see him as a player that's going to be able to score 10, 15 goals this season. And I'm looking across the list, and there's no one that particularly stands out for me there. As for Eastleigh, unfortunate against Forest Green. You look at the performances recently, they've certainly improved. And I think being on home soil, I think they'll be able to get the win here. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Eastleigh win. We'll move on to the next fixture. Halifax Town versus Yeovil, my side. You look at Forest Green and Scunthorpe, potentially we could have got 4 points out of those games. Scunthorpe, I think, we probably deserve to win it. Against Forest Green, we could have very easily come away with all 3 points if, as Robbie mentioned, we'd have put that chance away that Latty Fairweather had on goal. As for this one, it's interesting because I don't know if it's a good time to be playing Yeovil or not. Yeovil just sacked their manager. We've often seen when teams lose a manager where the fans are potentially wanting to have been calling out the manager. When they eventually do get sacked, it does give them a little bit of a boost. I'm hoping that's not the case on this occasion. I've actually gone for a 1-0 Halifax win because I think the performances are certainly there, and I think we're due a good result, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on the whole Yeovil situation?
Difficult one. Mark Cooper got him up from the National League South at a canter, and we've seen that's not an easy league to win over the last few years. Consolidated last year. Many fans have sort of made a point of saying, Mark Cooper's had to sort of navigate them through quite difficult times off of the pitch. We had a chat with him last year, and he felt that they were doing okay. I think it was always going to be a challenge, Luke, when a new owner comes in. Very, very rarely do they keep the manager that was in previously. And there's always going to be a time where they're going to be looking to possibly get their own person in, because everyone has their own ideas. We saw it with Morecambe. They get a new owner in, the manager doesn't last 24 hours. So, I think you look at it, Yeovil would have gone 8th if they won on Saturday. They were 3-0 up at half time. And it's one of those games, and I'm not trying to excuse it, but it's one of those freak fixtures that every now and then this happens, and they've just got done 4-3 in the last minute. Yeah. And all of a sudden everyone wants the manager to go. Probably the right time. If you look at what Yeovil fans are saying, they were very grateful for what Mark Cooper's done, but they feel that a change is needed. So who knows? Saturday's a really difficult one for them because they've got to go to Halifax. Halifax have only been at home a couple of times. They've got a brand new pitch. They've had a bit of an upturn in their form. Will Yeovil adapt to a new manager? Richard Dryden is their assistant coach, who's now gone in as caretaker manager. It's a really difficult one. I'm a bit like you, though, Luke. It's going to be a low-scoring game, and I've gone with a 1-1 draw.
Mark Cooper, over 150 matches, he managed Yeovil for in all competitions. Of course, was there when they got relegated, took them back up straight away with a promotion, and then comfortably kept them up last season, I thought, finishing 18th, which for me over the course of the season was probably their lowest position throughout the full 46 games. They haven't had an awful start. I think probably the manner in the way that they lost to Gates and under new ownership, there's probably quite a bit of expectation there at Yeovil, and with the manner how they lost against Gateshead, potentially that was the final straw, particularly when you hear the noise that the fans have been making about wanting Mark Cooper out. For me personally, I think he's a good, steady National League manager, but potentially Yeovil may have a little bit more ambitions than that. Of course, we'll speak, I'm sure, on a future podcast on potential new managers. The likes of Chris Millington's available. But we're going to speak about that on a future podcast, potentially on Sunday maybe. But no, we'll move on to the next fixture then that we'll have a look at. Gateshead versus Aldershot. Two sides that seem to be very entertaining so far this season. It sets up a bit of a cracker in terms of the entertainment value. I've gone for a 2-2 draw. How do you see it going?
Well, I think I randomly looked at it, and Aldershot as I have an average of 5 goals a game over the last however many games they've played. It's been bonkers. We've always said that they were a little bit susceptible at the back, and maybe their forward line wasn't quite as potent as it was a couple of years ago. But they've proved us wrong. And Gateshead, we don't know what Gateshead are at the moment, do we, Luke? Win one, lose one, let goals in, score lots of goals. I've actually gone for a really odd score here. I've gone for Gateshead 3, Aldershot 4. It's one of those random scores.
You're trying so hard to get that prediction like I did that time.
Well, yeah, exactly. At this present time, I don't think there's a more suited game to get that result as that. Not my luck, it'll be 0-0. But Gateshead 3, Aldershot 4. That's what I've gone for.
Fair enough. We'll move on to the next fixture then that we'll have a look at, and it is Hartlepool versus Boreham Wood. Boreham Wood, I think, established themselves in this division. We probably know that they're certainly going to be capable of staying up. They're winning the games expected to win against the likes of Truro and Braintree. Away, though, at Hartlepool, yet to be defeated this season, had an excellent start, only conceded 1 goal, picking a point up away from Southend United. For me, overall, it's been a great start, and I can only see them winning this match. I'm actually going to go for a 2-0 Hartlepool win. How do you see it going?
Oh, I've gone for a fairer result in a 1-1 draw. I think Wood have shown a bit of resilience, haven't they? They've come up. Luke Garrard wants them to sort of consolidate. I think he's got something to prove after his last efforts in the National League before he lost his job, before coming back. And we've always said Woods are difficult to break down. Pools are difficult to break down. So that's why I've gone with that 1-1 draw. I think it'd be quite an attritional game. I can't see too much football being played, and that's no disrespect to those teams, but I think they're going to be hard working, resilient, and I've gone with a 1-1 draw on that one.
Moving on to the next fixture that we'll have a look at, it will be Morecambe versus Woking. Morecambe, a great win on the Saturday, then went down to Aldershot and got thumped. I think that's probably a case of a new squad coming together, tiredness. There's a lot of factors for that. And I don't think it's much of an embarrassment considering everything that's gone on there. Woking still searching for that first win. I think they're going to get it here. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Woking win. How do you see it going?
I've gone with a Morecambe to win 2-1. I saw Woking play against Wealdstone. I wasn't hugely impressed. I know they got a draw out of York, but I know people who went to the game and said Woking weren't great, and York obviously weren't great themselves. I think that feel-good factor of being at home is going to be huge for Morecambe over the next couple of weeks. And if results keep going at home, they'll keep that feel-good factor. It's when they start getting a little bit of a gut punch and lose a few games that will that deflate slightly. But they're still going to be on a high. We just heard Robbie Savage talk about the fact they're playing games and they've got players coming in, and that's going to be great for them. And that home advantage, I think, more than most at the moment will help Morecambe win the game. So I've gone with 2-1 to Morecambe.
Moving on to the next fixture that we'll have a look at, then we will go to Sutton versus Carlisle. Do you see a bit of an upset here, particularly Carlisle being away? However, they've actually been better away than they've been at home in the opening couple of games. I've gone for a 1-1 draw. I don't actually think Sutton are that bad of a side so far. I think they've had a lot of tough fixtures. If you have to consider they've had to play Forest Green, Rochdale, Scunthorpe, who've had a good start. For me, overall, I'm not too concerned for Sutton. Obviously not the ideal start for them. Carlisle looking good in the last couple of games. But I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. How do you see it going?
I've gone for 3-0 to Carlisle. I mean, listen, Sutton's games there, just that are on the screen, Scunthorpe and Rochdale, they're 2 tough games, and they've got to follow that up with Carlisle. I saw Carlisle at the Vale on Saturday. Very, very good going forward. Reagan Linney with the ball at his feet facing the goal is absolutely dynamite. He causes problems. And the Wealdstone defence, to be fair to him, marshalled them quite well. Luke, what's his name up top? Armstrong, very, very willing runner, works hard, got a good goal, very cute goal, near post header off the corner. And then they had to dig in when the threat from Wealdstone came at them down the hill of the Vale in the second half, and they ultimately dealt with it well, rode their luck a little bit, could have scored themselves. I just think they're a very good football side. I think their Achilles heel may be that defence, and we've talked about that, Luke, haven't we? But I'm not sure Sutton are the team to cause them that problem at this present time. So again, they're a team that haven't been beaten, Carlisle, and I think that will continue on Saturday, and they'll win 3-0.
Truro versus Boston. Truro came so close to picking up their first point in the National League. Bournemouth with a late winner on Monday, I believe. Coming up against the Boston side, whose season's got up and running, winning against Wealdstone. I think there's a lot of people questioning the actual performance for Boston in that game. I still think they might just about sneak it v Truro. I think the problem with Truro so far has been in both boxes. I think in games they've been able to compete, but they've not been able to score the goals that they've needed. And defensively, they keep leaking silly goals. And in this match, I think Boston will be able to win 1-0. How do you see it going?
I think you're right. Boston played Wealdstone on Monday at Bank Holiday Monday at their place, and very much the view of Wealdstone fans was, how the hell did we not win that game? Boston took advantage of some errors, lack of concentration, and they took the 3 points. Fair play to them, but I don't think they were hugely impressive in that win. But you don't have to be. You just got to win games, right? And I think Truro at the moment are just that little bit too lightweight, a little bit too nice. You're right, not so good in both boxes, and that's where it really helps. And that's where Wealdstone came short on Monday, as an example. So I think Boston will win 2-1. And as much as winning breeds confidence, losing will have that reverse. It sort of breeds a bit of anxiety, nervousness. Does the braveness out of the players go because they don't want to make mistakes? Do the heads drop as soon as, and the energy levels drop because they're going to go down 1-0, 2-0 again? So it's a really difficult thing to consider on the flip side of winning. And we've seen how it works with that interview we just done with Robbie Savage, and everyone's so up for it and buoyant, the ownership down. The reverse is when you keep losing, and Truro are in that spot at the moment. And it's one of the more favourable games playing Boston. It's got to be. They've got to look at that and think we can probably nick points. I just don't think they will. I think Boston are going to win 2-1.
Moving on to the next picture that we'll have a look at, Wealdstone versus Rochdale. A potential for Wealdstone to cause an upset. Paul, of course, competed with Carlisle.
Yeah, genuinely, I don't think so. I'd love to think they will, but I think Rochdale will win. It'll be a close game. Wealdstone have been invariably very good defensively. We've got a lot of new players. We've got a lot of untested players. We've got players that have been recruited on not a massive budget, and we are playing really good football. And I think, again, a view of a Wealdstone fan is we're a centre forward away from being a very comfortable National League side. Not suggesting they'd even go for the playoff, but a very comfortable National League side. So we've scored 7 goals this season. We've had 7 different goal scorers, Luke. We haven't got that one person we can hang our hat on and say they're going to get me 10, 15, 20 goals this season. And whilst that's okay, getting 7 scorers for 7 goals, at some point that ain't going to happen, right? So we need to try and find that conundrum of that centre forward that can finish a lot of what gets started. So I genuinely don't think Wealdstone will win. It'll be a close contest. We will give it our all, but I think Rochdale win 2-1.
Someone's mentioned Stones have a 100% record against Rochdale at home. If it's the only time they've faced each other has been since Rochdale got relegated, unless there's been cup games, that means they've only played each other on 2 occasions, and Wealdstone have won both at home. I think that might change for this match. I'm going to go for a Rochdale win like yourself. We spoke to Robbie tonight, and he mentioned Rochdale. For me, they're the only side at the moment that could potentially compete. The issue is of course, things like making 11 changes. to your starting 11 isn't going to put you in good stead, in my opinion. Of course, they did get back to winning ways on Monday, and I think they'll be able to win this game 2-0 if he picks the right lineup, that is. But anyway, moving on to the next fixture that we'll have a look at. I think it's Scunthorpe versus Brackley. Scunthorpe dropped points for the first time this season against Halifax, of course, albeit Scunny were down to 10 men. Brackley, though, they're a really interesting side that are really, I think, will be very hard to beat this season. We've seen Rochdale struggle there. We saw them win on the opening day against Eastleigh as well. I think a point for Scunny would be a good point here, and I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. How do you see it going?
We started with the same score. We're finishing with the same score. I've gone with a 1-1 draw as well, Luke. I think you're right. Brackley are, they've done amazingly well since they've come into the league after a number of years of trying. I feel they're very much like what I saw with Wilson when they first came in the league, a little bit of an unknown, bundles of enthusiasm, wanting to do well, a small ground, a committed fan base, and that all helps. And big clubs aren't going to want to go to these little places at first, and they've got to adapt to them. And Brackley have to take advantage of that. Whether they can score enough goals ultimately, to get them the points they need, that's still something that we look at. And again, Robbie Savage alluded to it. You've got to have big budgets in this league to want to do well, and it's hard to find that 15 to 20 season a goal striker, 15 to 20 goals a season striker on a modest budget, and Brackley will fall into that. Scunthorpe on their day, they proved they can do well. They've only lost one, and so I think you're right. It's going to be a 1-1 draw again, a tough physical battle that neither team will get the edge on this one.
If Scunny can keep that forward line fit throughout the season, it could be the difference from them being a side that can compete for the playoffs and still be where we probably predicted them, where I mean like 17th, 18th. That's the difference. Because you've got Kyle Roberts there, who's injury prone, yet you keep him fit. He's an individual that will be playing League One football, in my opinion, now. I thought before Scunny played this season, I thought Kyle Roberts, he stands out. Remember him at Notts County, got good stats last season in the National League North. But I saw him on last weekend as well, and I saw what he could do, and he took about 5 players on and scored, and he's still got that ability there. Declan Howe, gone under the radar, a quality player that can score a lot of goals. Ewing in the midfield, who's more of an attacking midfielder. He's someone that, stands out on the pitch as well. And of course, Danny Whitehall as well, who's injured at the moment. You've got him as well. If you think of like those 4 players, if you take all 4 of them out, then they're going to struggle to survive, in my opinion. But if you've got those players in there, then they can potentially compete for the playoffs. I genuinely think that, because they looked good on Monday. Of course, when they went down to 10 men, the situation changes, I suppose. But no, Scunthorpe so far had a great start, but I think a point at Brackley would actually be a good point, in my opinion. But no, Paul, that more or less wraps up the predictions now. I do really appreciate you joining me once again. Please remember to like and subscribe, everyone. It really does go a long way if you can do that. I know everyone says it, but I kind of got to do it. And you'd be doing me a massive favour if you could do that. But no, Paul, certainly been a good one tonight, I suppose.
Yeah, no problem. Listen, we can talk about Adam Hinshelwood and Stuart Maynard and York next week, because obviously they haven't got a game this week due to the Rugby World Cup, Women's Rugby World Cup. So they've got a week off because the ground's being used in that tournament. So, we'll discuss that next week at length and analyse their first game under the new management, which I believe is Yeovil away, who may or may not have a manager by then. So those that are interested in the York issues and our take on it, then we'll cover that next week, Luke, I think. But in the meantime, Yeovil have got to replace their manager. Robbie Savage has got to stay top of the league. And let's hope that whoever's team you're following, that they'll get the result you wanted on the weekend.
I could actually use this week's thumbnail for next week now. Because I'm facing each other, so it all does work out. But no, I hope everyone can realise why we've had to change things around tonight. It was too good of an opportunity for me to say, nah, we're not having him on this week, to be honest. So, no, I do really appreciate him coming on. And like I've said, he mentioned it does really help a channel like ours that covers the National League. And it's the same with any manager that comes on. We do appreciate guests coming on, because I'm sure people will get sick of hearing our voices every week after a bit. But no, Paul, as always, thanks for joining me. I couldn't have done it without you.
No problem, mate. No worries. Yeah, enjoy your weekend. Who have you got again? You got Yeovil at home.
We've got Yeovil at home, yeah. And best of luck for you against Rochdale.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, and we're back online next Thursday again. Yeah, hopefully no special guests to derail what we got to talk about.
Well, to be fair, I won't be there next week, unfortunately. I'm off in Ibiza, but don't panic. Paul will be hosting the podcast, and we'll have to see what guests would like to join him and preview all the fixtures next week. But no, Paul, thanks for joining me once again. If you'd like to become a channel member, everyone, it's £2.99 a month. Also, check out our sponsors, Cards Accepted. There's a link in the description for you to do that. No contracts or monthly fees. Like I've mentioned, please remember to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Bye.